So let's talk about securing your AWS environment. You've basically got two main players on the field, the automated sentry and the deep dive detective. And honestly, picking the right strategy between them or even combining them can make all the difference in the world. So let's break down how you build the best possible defense for your cloud. All right, let me ask you something. Does your security team ever feel like they're just drowning in a sea of logs? I mean, if you'd ever worked with cloud infrastructure, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The sheer amount of data that comes pouring out of every single service, it can be completely and utterly overwhelming. And when I say overwhelming, I mean it's just an insane scale. To give you some perspective, a huge company like Dell can generate over 125 billion log events in a single day. A single day. Trying to find one bad actor in that mountain of data, it's not just like finding a needle in a haystack. It's practically impossible if you don't have a smart strategy. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to tackle that log overload problem head on. Then we'll meet our two main characters, GuardDuty, our automated sentry, and Manual Analysis, our deep dive detective. We'll put them head to head, and then, and this is the important part, we'll show you how to build a killer hybrid strategy that really uses the best of both worlds. All right, so let's start with the big challenge here. There's this trap that so many people fall into, right? This idea that if you just collect every single log from everywhere, you're automatically more secure. But as a lot of us have found out the hard way, more data doesn't always equal better visibility. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. And here are the real-world consequences of that trap. You're just sucking in terabytes of data, and suddenly you're hit with these massive, unexpected bills. Your security analysts get absolutely buried in so many alerts, they just get alert fatigue and, they start tuning out the real threats. The really critical stuff gets lost in all that noise. And when you do need to investigate something, your team is wasting precious time digging through junk instead of actually responding. So, how do we start to solve this? Well, let's meet our first solution. Amazon GuardDuty. And I really want you to think of it as the automated sentry that's always standing guard over your entire environment. Now, the key word here is intelligent. GuardDuty isn't just a dumb log collector. It's an active threat detection service. It's built to constantly scan your AWS accounts for stuff like reconnaissance, maybe a compromised instance, or just weird account behavior. And the best part? It does all of this without you having to manage any of the complicated backend stuff. And this is where the magic really happens. GuardDuty taps directly into three supercritical data streams: VPC flow logs for network traffic, AWS CloudTrail for all your API calls, and DNS logs to see if you're talking to bad websites. Now get this, you don't even have to turn these logs on or store them yourself for GuardDuty to work. It just analyzes the data streams independently, which is a massive, massive win for your operations team. So, the mental model is really simple. GuardDuty is your sentry on the wall. It is always on, 24/7, always watching the whole landscape for known threats and weird patterns. It gives you that essential broad stroke coverage, and it takes almost zero effort to set up. But what happens when that sentry on the wall actually spots something? Well, that's when you call in our second player, Manual Analysis, the deep dive detective. Now, this is a totally different ballgame. This is where a security analyst literally rolls up their sleeves and uses powerful tools, something like Amazon Athena, to go digging through raw log files that you've stored somewhere, like an S3 bucket. This isn't about broad monitoring anymore. We're talking about a targeted, super deep dive forensic investigation. I love this quote from someone on Stack Overflow, because it nails the why. You go to Manual Analysis when a simple alert like, hey, this happened, just isn't enough. It's for when you have to ask those bigger questions like, okay, but what's the pattern here? How would this even start? And what else did it touch? That's detective work. So, to put it all together, if GuardDuty is the sentry watching for any sign of trouble, Manual Analysis is the detective who shows up at the crime scene. It's that methodical process of gathering all the evidence, connecting the dots, and really uncovering the entire story of what happened. Okay, so we have our sentry and we have our detective. Now for the fun part. Let's put them right next to each other to really get a feel for their different roles and, most importantly, when you should call on each one. Let's look at the trade-offs here. GuardDuty's whole goal is broad, automated detection. The effort, it's incredibly low. You basically just flip a switch. It's fantastic for spotting known threats across your whole environment. But it's not a tool for deep exploration of logs. Now, manual analysis, it's all about that deep investigation. But the effort level is high. You need real expertise. And its biggest drawback is that it can be slow and, frankly, pretty complex when you're dealing with massive amounts of data. A great way to visualize this is to map it to the standard NIST incident response framework. And when you do, you see these two tools aren't competing at all. They're just working on different parts of a same problem. GuardDuty absolutely owns the detection and analysis phase. It's your star player there. But once a threat is confirmed, manual analysis becomes absolutely critical for those next steps: containment, eradication, and recovery. You can't contain something you don't fully understand. And that leads us to what I think is the most important takeaway from this whole explainer. The goal is never to choose between the sentry and the detective. The goal is to make them an unstoppable team. Seriously, this is not an either-or thing. The most effective, mature security setups out there, they don't just rely on one. They build a smart workflow where the strengths of one tool perfectly cover the weaknesses of the other. So what does that powerful workflow actually look like? Well, step 1, detect. You've got GuardDuty on across all your accounts, giving you that 24/7 coverage. Step 2, trigger. A high-severity finding from GuardDuty isn't the end of the story, it's the start of one. It's the trigger for your investigation. Step 3, investigate. Now your team pivots to their manual analysis tools, and they use the info from that GuardDuty alert, like the instance ID and the time, to zero in on the exact right logs. And finally, step 4, contain and respond. But now you're acting with the full, rich context that you got from that deep dive. If you remember just one thing from all of this, let it be this simple idea. GuardDuty is incredible at finding the smoke, that first sign that something is wrong. But it's the methodical detective work of manual analysis that helps you find the source of the fire, figure out how far it spread, and put it out for good. And that kind of leaves us with a really fascinating final thought, doesn't it? As things like AI and machine learning get baked deeper and deeper into our security tools, that line between just detecting something and actually investigating it, it's getting blurry. So the real question for the future is this. As these automated sentries get smarter and smarter, how much of that methodical, human detective work will they learn to do all on their own? And what's that going to mean for the future of security?